This episode is brought to you by me, Camping with Lenny. Help me create great content by supporting this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/campinglenny. Thanks for your support. Hello everyone and welcome to Camping with Lenny. Today we're going to be talking about what to eat for your first camping trip. It is very, very important that your meal that you're going to have for your first camping trip will be great. Reason why I'm saying that is food is going to make and break your camping experience. The reason why I'm saying that is this. It just makes everything feel so much better when you go camping and sleeping on the floor and it's cold and it's miserable or it's hot and there's a lot of bugs floating around. But one thing that you'll be remembering this whole trip is the food. So there are two types of camping that we have to go through first, so at least you guys know where the conversation is going to go to. First is your backcountry backpacking camping trip experience. The food there is completely different than your traditional second car camping with a tent, with a running water faucet, just a few meters away, and a fire pit. Okay, let's go back to the backcountry camping. There's two types of meals that you can actually bring with you. One is a freeze-dry / MRE. If you guys don't know what MRE is ready to eat. Meals ready to eat. Typically, military people uses them because they're super easy. You just add water and go. Same thing for freeze-dry. Freeze-dry, you put hot water, you're good to go. And the other meal that you should be looking at, especially if you're doing backcountry, is my personal favorite, is leftovers. Leftovers is the key. If you have leftovers, put it in small Ziploc pouch bags. Double bag it, of course, because you don't want to spill it, and freeze them. When you're ready to eat, just put them in water, let it boil, then just eat it from your bag or eat it from a bowl that you have. It is very, very important for you to have this kind of meal because it's it's portable. You don't have to carry any raw ingredients. You just have to cook it and boil in water for those two types of meals. My personal favorite is actually leftovers. The reason why the leftovers are my favorite is one, you don't have to worry about preservatives. You don't have to worry about where's it coming from, what kind of ingredients they end up using that you don't know, right? And also, it's fresh because you cooked it yourself. For the MRE and for the freeze dry, you have to be very, very careful because you don't know what kind of ingredients they use there. So you have to do your research very, very well. Also, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, or gluten or any food allergies, you have to be very careful using eating MREs and freeze dry because you just don't know where they came from, right? So you have to get them. You have to get them from a reliable source or vendor, right? The other one as well too is the salt content. Right, that's right. Salt content salt content itself. Sometimes they use salt as a preservative on their meals, so it can be very, very salty. So just be aware of that. So it can be very, very hard or annoying. I think that's the best way to describe it. It can be very, very annoying if you're not used to eating that food. But if you are planning to go that route and using a freeze-dry or MRE style meals for your camping trip, buy some weeks before, I talk about 2 or 3 weeks before, buy several packs and try them at home. Eat it the way you're planning to eat it in camping because that will give you an idea if the meals itself is, well, frankly, good enough or better than you expected, or it will fuel you on your hike, right? So that's a little food for thought there. Personally, I still like the leftover ones because it does work very well. Next, I want to talk about is car camping / tent camping, right? Good thing about this kind of setups is you have lots of room, so you're allowed to bring anything you want from hot dogs to steaks to burgers. You can have wine and cheese platter if you want. You can have anything you want, and the world is your oyster. You can have whatever meals you want in car camping, because because of this. You have storage, you have access to a cooler, right? And you can store it inside your car. You don't have to take it out, especially if it's if you do need to secure your food overnight, right? Well, the reason why I'm saying that the world is your oyster, especially if you're car camping, is because you have more options, right? Again, you don't have to limit yourself from eating hamburgers, hot dogs, pita bread, nachos, whatever. You can eat whatever you want. In other words, you can eat whatever you want. Like, you can have filet mignon if you want to, right? That's like the worst. That's like up there. But if you are looking at what kind of meals that you want to do for your first time trip, make it simple. Make it simple. Again, make it simple. The reason why I keep saying make it simple is this. If you end up spending an hour to 2 hours making your meals, while instead of enjoying yourself in camping, you're going to have a very miserable time, because you feel like you're just at home cooking constantly. That's why I was a big fan of saying, hey, if you're planning to have a steak, make sure you prep everything. At least by the time you get to the fire, you just put it in the fire and you're good to go. If you're planning to have hot dogs and burgers, bring enough plus one. Don't bring everything. The reason why is this. If you only have leftovers, and if you're and you open a package and there's no way for you to resecure it again, you might have to toss that piece of meat, for example, or the bread, because you can't store it properly, right? So prep your meals prep your meals a week before. It will help a lot. Okay. Also, don't be afraid to experiment a bit. I love experimenting food while I'm camping. I love trying new things. But at the same time, if you're planning to experiment new things in camping, be prepared to work on it. If you get a chance to prep it and try it at home first. Then at least when you get into to your camping mode or in camping place, at least the issues can be very, very finite, can be very small. You don't have to worry about it, right? Also, if you want to even keep it more simple when you go camping, bring leftovers. I love bringing leftovers when I go camping, because I have less things to do, less things to cook. I just have to heat it up. And for me, that's the goal. The goal is to make sure my camping experience is great. My goal is not to cook every day, not to cook for 2 hours for my meal. I'd rather put it in the grill or put it on top of a fire and just leave it there. And a few minutes later, or half an hour to an hour later, it's cooked. At least it's there cooking because I prepped it early, right? If it's just sitting around while you're like chopping and all that stuff, while people are having fun and you can do hiking, you have to come back from the beach early because you need to cook. That's no fun. That's definitely not fun trip. So always prep your meals. Okay. And the key of this podcast, this episode, is about what should you bring, or what are you going to eat for your first trip. I suggest burgers, hot dogs, steaks, baked potatoes are great. If you can find a recipe for double baked potatoes, try that, because it's a great meal to have on camping. Corn on the cob. Wrap it in foil, put a little butter and salt inside the corn, and put it in a fire for like 20 minutes, until it's cooked, and it's great. It's super simple, right? Rice is great as well too. Do like a prepackaged curry, for example, or green curry chicken, for example, and it's super easy. You don't have to spend time to cook all day just to make it enjoyable to eat. You can experiment so many things. That's super easy, super fun. Just try it. You're gonna have so much fun doing it. Also, one thing as well too, especially if you are car camping, keep your meats, vegetables, and anything liquid like water, adult beverages, separate from each other. The reason why I'm saying that is, for example, if you have a cooler dedicated just for, let's say, water, right, and beer, or anything canned, away from your meats, at least you're minimizing the cross contamination between the line of having salmonella poisoning and not, right? If you only have one cooler, for example, make sure you double and quadruple ziplock your meats, right? And keep an eye on it as well too. If there's water goes into your Ziploc, there's a good chance the water inside your cooler can be contaminated. So you can't use the ice that's floating, for example. So you just have to be aware that there is a lot of health things that you want to keep an eye on, especially if you are transporting raw meats and within your drinking bottled water. Right, so just keep an eye on that. You don't want to drink that water that's been flowing around inside your cooler, and that's a big no-no. You don't want to deal with that. Okay, so and also if you have fruits and vegetables, try to put them in a separate container, cooler if possible. If not, put it within the water itself because it's easier to maintain. If you are planning to have the ice in the cooler, have it separated as well too, because you don't want to you just want to make sure they're not contaminated. It's a health thing more than convenience sake than anything else. But if you're backpacking, if you are backcountrying it, you just have to make sure you keep an eye on that as well to make sure it's separate. Make sure you put it inside a dry bag so it doesn't leak out. If it does leak out, it doesn't go within your bag itself. So it just keeps it clean. What I'm going to do in a future episode, I'm going to show you guys how to keep your cooler ice cold without keep buying ice constantly. I have a trick, and it does work, and I went camping for 5 days, and I did not refresh my ice, and it's still ice cold. So, thank you. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, consider supporting this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee, link in the description. You can also visit campingwithlenny.com. There you can find other episodes and links that can help you on your next camping adventures. Thanks again.